Before you start doing any PMU procedures, you want to make sure you're finding that ideal client. Having an ideal client is going to ensure that they're going to get good results and have beautiful, flawless brows. I know when I first started microblading, I was so excited that all I wanted to do is get my hands on someone so that I could practice. But after working on several clients who probably weren't the best or ideal candidate, I realized the hard way that you want to be picky when choosing someone to work on. In this video, I'm going to go over those 3 things that you want to review before accepting any appointment for a PMU service. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Christy and I'm the owner of Boss Brows. I've been in the beauty industry for 9 years now, specializing in microblading and microblading training. I'm a licensed esthetician and tattoo artist. This channel is all about sharing my tips and tricks and business experience so that you can step up your brow game. So if this sounds like something for you, make sure to hit that subscribe button because I come out with new videos every other Tuesday. Why is it so important to be picky when accepting an appointment for any PMU service? Anyone who's willing to pay $350 and up, I know I paid $1,500 for my eyebrows, they're gonna have really high expectations. We wanna be able to deliver on those expectations. Therefore, it's really important to understand these 3 things. The first thing to consider is if they have any skin conditions or medical conditions. In order to perform the microblading or PMU procedure, the client's skin has to be in good, healthy condition. The reason for this is that you're scratching or cutting into the client's skin. Therefore, your results are going to heavily rely on the state of that client's skin and whether or not they're going to be able to achieve great pigment retention. This is why it's super important to understand contraindications to microblading or any PMU service. Contraindications are reasons why you wouldn't be able to get the service done, and you really want to make sure you communicate this with your client prior to them booking. So for example, I put all the contraindications to microblading on my website so that it's clearly stated before they actually book an appointment. You have to review if the client has any medical conditions or skin conditions that might prevent them from getting this service. Any skin conditions such as rosacea, dermatitis, psoriasis, eczema, shingles or rashes, etc. If a client has any of these skin conditions, especially when they're present on the forehead or face, they're definitely not going to be able to get the service done. You're trying to protect your client's skin and you're trying to be realistic as far as expectations go. For example, if a client has rosacea, their skin is really sensitive. So if you go and cut into that skin and you're trying to implant medical grade pigment, well, usually they're going to bleed a lot and that blood is going to push out that pigment, therefore resulting in really poor pigment retention. I do have a full list of the medical conditions and skin conditions that prevent a client from getting any of these microblading or PMU services. So if you want to check that out, I will post the link to my blog in the description below. Now, the second thing you want to consider before the client comes in is their skin type. Now, usually you can ask the client if they have dry skin, combination skin, or if they have oily skin, or if they have sensitive skin. Depending on what your client's skin type is and what service they want, you may be able to perform that procedure. So for example, if someone wants microblading done, the best skin type for this service is normal to dry. Definitely not sensitive, because microblading is a cut into the skin, which is technically more trauma to the skin than using the permanent makeup machine. So someone who bleeds a lot, like I said earlier, is not going to hold that pigment, because while we're trying to push that pigment in, it's going to be pushed out by the blood. It's also really hard to work on a client who bleeds a lot, so try to make your job easier for yourself by preparing for your appointment very thoroughly. Now let's say your client has combination skin or even oily skin. Does this mean they can't get microblading or any PMU service? No, not necessarily. It just means that they can't get the microblading strokes. But there is the combination brow or the ombre brow. Now, if someone has really oily skin, I always recommend the ombre brow because we don't have to worry about those microblading strokes blurring out due to the natural oils in the skin. So finding the best fit as far as procedure goes is going to be crucial in making your client happy. The third thing is the client's current eyebrows. I feel like this gets overlooked a lot, and clients come in with these pictures of brows that they want and they don't consider what we have to work with already. We're not always working with a blank canvas. In some cases, you're working with really thick coarse, misshaped brows. And if that's the case, microblading strokes aren't going to be suitable for that client. Even though those strokes appear to be three-dimensional, they're only 2D. And at the end of the day, when they heal, that pigment is sitting in the skin. And their hair, especially if it's thick and coarse, is three-dimensional and usually fluffy. And so the microblading strokes really struggle to compete with how fluffy those thick, coarse eyebrows are. It just doesn't flow as well. You can really see the difference of where your microblading is and where their hair is. So if someone has really thick, misshaped brows, a service that I would recommend is the ombre brow. The ombre brow is going to give them more of that powder fill, which is really going to help shape and define the eyebrows. So you want to look at the shape of the eyebrows, the density or thickness of the eyebrows, and lastly, you want to know if your client has any previous permanent makeup. If they have previous permanent makeup, you may have the challenge of doing a color correction or cover up. And in this case, you can't always guarantee that your cover up is going to completely cover their previous PMU. So in this case, I always recommend doing a consultation with a client if they do have previous PMU. That way you can explain to them what their options are, and in some cases, one of those options may be to do removal first and then come back and start with a blank canvas. Or in other cases, maybe you can work over that previous PMU, but they may not be able to get the microblading strokes. It might be better to do a combo brow or ombre brow because it's going to cover up that old work better. So with all this being said, the most important thing to remember is to educate your client. Explain to them the 3 things that they need to consider before booking that microblading appointment or PMU service. I would highly recommend offering complimentary consultations. This way, the client can come in and you can chat and actually look at their brows in person. You can look at their skin type. You can ask them what their eyebrow goals are and review any of the contraindications to microblading. This is going to pave the way for a much better and smooth service.